This is another iRaw podcast.
Welcome to a special episode of Wildly Unplug. I am recording from Cades Cove, Tennessee on my iPhone. And if you thought I was distracted a couple weeks ago when I was sitting at the Nature Center, this might be a little bit more intense. I'm not doing any video though because I am currently in SOS mode. There is zero cell phone service in Cades Cove. We are in a valley surrounded 360 by mountains. I will try to include a picture in my Substack of where I'm currently sitting because it's just beautiful. Haven't seen any bears yet this morning. We saw some yesterday. Saw some turkeys, seen some ravens, hear lots of beautiful birds. But yeah, it's been really rainy, so I'm wondering if bears are tired from trying to escape all that rain last night. I don't know. So I found a good spot to pull off and record because I need to do my Wildly Rejected Week 8 review. And yeah, it's kind of a full circle moment right now though, because I came out to Cades Cove 3 years ago, my second bout of burnout in 3 years. I really bad in 2020 when I quit my career as a dive safety officer, and then in 2023 I quit my podcast I was in, my very first one, with a couple friends. And you know the saying, like, what saying am I even trying to say? It was basically, I felt like, okay, I'm the problem here. I need to take a time out and go out into nature and do some soul searching, because I felt like I kept getting myself into situations where I'm working really, really hard and kind of people are on, I don't want to say, I don't know how to put it. Like, I feel like I was doing a lot of the work and people were along for the ride and they kept expecting me to do more work than others, both in my career and in the podcast. And in the podcast, it was really born out of 2020 and uncertain times, and we were getting together to meet and talk over Zoom, and it turned into this podcast, and we were exploring all these different ideas and adventures kind of separately but together. Like, we'd go off and do the adventure and then come back and report on it, and it was a really cool concept. Well, in 2023 it really seemed like, yeah, as the world's opening back up, people are getting back into their, I don't know, normal routine. Is anything normal anymore? That they had less time for it. And since I had my own business with my husband doing the drone business, that I had a little bit more free time. I work from home, and I really wanted to go part-time with the podcast and not do it every single week, because I needed to focus more on my drone business. I needed to focus on my artwork, and doing a podcast that was basically for fun. We weren't getting paid. We were getting to interview really cool people, some famous people, and doing some really cool activities like fire eating and riding motorcycles, stand-up comedy, foraging, staying alone in the wilderness, you know, all sorts of really cool things. Well, I needed to not do as much administrative stuff for the podcast in 2023. And it was kind of a, no, we can't go part-time. And I found that once I quit, they ended up going part-time. So it really kind of felt like it solidified my thinking in that they really just wanted to use me for making the podcast to come together. They didn't really care about me, that they cared about producing this podcast once a week. And sometimes you just got to follow your gut. I had the same feeling towards the end of that podcast as I did leaving my career. that it was just time to move on, and you gotta trust your gut on those things. So I went to Cades Cove by myself and my beautiful little girl, Fiona. She is my husky. She was, 11 years old at the time. She was still in pretty good shape. And she sat in my Jeep and just looked out on the world as we drove around, and I was taking photos. It was a great time. And I was still really into photography then. And over the past 2 years, I've kind of fallen out of it with moving and not being able to get out into nature as much, at least with a big camera. So it's been really nice. I feel like going back to my roots, going out with a camera again. And 3 years ago, I was, besides just quitting the podcast, I was doing the drone business with my husband, which never eventually took off. And that was a blessing because he got his job down in Key West. But at the time, 3 years ago, I was doing LC Aqua Art, which is where I was doing my watercolors. And then I was doing Lauren Connolly photography. So it was a lot of balls to juggle. And I'm like, how does this all fit together? And I feel that Cades Cove was kind of the seeds that were planted for Wild Development Studio. Like, how can I combine photography and watercolor and nature journaling and adventures in podcasting all together? So Wild Development Studio was born basically 3 years ago in Cades Cove, where I'm sitting. And it didn't fully take shape until November of 2023, where I came up with a name. I like developments because it was like photography and, wild is nature. And so I liked the name. And then I was very scared to start a podcast by myself. And can I do that and interview these people and be interesting all on my own? And it's been a really wild ride, and I'm glad I'm still podcasting and I'm able to use the experience that I had from 3 years ago to do what I'm doing now. So I'm grateful for the experiences that I've had, and no ill will or harm to, anybody in the past. Just, it's funny because I'm listening to a playlist that I created 3 years ago. Because again, like I said, there is zero service out here. So I made a playlist, and it really takes you back to that time when you're listening to songs that you created for a certain time. So, gosh, it's like Drew Combs or Honeycomb. I forget his name. It's like Find Your People, Great Heart by Jimmy Buffett. If I can figure out how to share playlists, I'll share my playlist too. Florence and the Machine, Dog Days Are Over. So all these songs that I had lined up for myself to, really start a healing process. And yeah, I'm grateful for the experiences I've had. I was really angry at the time. I can still find myself getting angry if I let myself, but I wouldn't be where I am now. Basically is what I want to say. I'm riffing this morning. Because then in January of 2024, I finally started Wild Development Studio podcast, which now is Wildly Unplugged, to, I think, make the message a little bit more clear that it's about nature and stepping back from the hustle. Even coming to Cades Cove right now is kind of crazy. We spent a week in a cabin in Loveland, Ohio, and I'm like, when am I even going to get time to myself to come out to Cades Cove? I didn't get to do it last year. I took a break after my month-long artist in residence in Gatlinburg. So, yeah, I couldn't come back quite yet. And I knew I couldn't come out here alone this time. I'm going to be an empty nester soon. So I needed to bring my son. He's at the cabin right now sleeping because it is 8:30 in the morning. But yesterday we got to see some bears digging in a rotten log looking for bugs, and then another bear was walking on top of the downed log. And just to hear my almost 18-year-old son get really excited about that, because, teenagers got to be cool. It was just, yeah, I made the right decision. And I don't normally bring my other dog, George, with us, but he's showing his age a lot more than Fiona, and he's got, I forget what it's called, but he's got a bunch of lumps. They've removed them before, and if they don't get it all, it just grows back, and it grew back with a vengeance. So he looks like my little Igor. He's got a humpback, and he's still happy. He still loves going on adventures, but he's 13. I couldn't put him through another surgery, and we're just keeping him as happy as we could. And I'm like, let's take him on an adventure this time. He doesn't usually do good in the car, but it's kind of a test for when we move down to Florida in a couple weeks. So yeah, we're moving in a couple weeks. Like, it's so crazy that I'm even here right now, but I'm like, I have to do it. I have to come back to Cades Cove. It's around the same time of year that I went 3 years ago. And then the next year that I went in 2024 in May, I found out I got the artist in residence for November 2024 in Gatlinburg. They're like, congratulations, you'll get to spend a month here. I'm like, that's funny you say that, because I'm already here. So, oh, there's some wild turkeys out there. That's pretty cool. Yeah, this place, if you ever get a chance to go to Cades Cove, it is just a magical place. And I'm glad I'm getting to go again and have this full circle moment and really see how far I've come in 3 years and reflect on that before I move down to Key West. As I told my husband, it kind of feels like, because I've been in Ohio since I was 5. Once I finally move out of my parents' house to live in Key West officially, I feel like I'm a little untethered, that I don't have home base. Like, I don't know. It's a brand new adventure. We got lots of chapters closing in our family and lots of new exciting chapters about to start. So, very exciting times. Thank you for listening if you're still here. And if you're here just for the week 8 update, I can start into that. But I almost feel like talking about Cades Cove is part of that rejection process, that I was feeling rejected by my friends from that podcast 3 years ago, rejected from work, even though I was the one that quit both of those things. But, when things start not feeling right, when you're having more bad days than good days, and you try and defend your side and stand up for what you think is right, and the crowd is going against what you think is right and what the mission is, then it's kind of a form of rejection. So this Cades Cove was part of my healing process from those rejections. And yeah, sometimes rejections, while they sting and they require some healing, sometimes a lot of healing, it puts you on the right path to where you're meant to be. Because if things were feeling great at my job, I would still be working at that job. I would still be living in Cincinnati, and I know that's not the right place for me to be. I've never felt like I fit in there or belong there. I got made fun of for wearing flip-flops the other day. It's May. It's almost summertime. Flip-flops are my footwear of choice. Which, speaking of, this is also part of research for my book, Wings of Truth. So it's a little bit of the main character dealing with the loss of her grandfather and discovering that he was in a secret organization. It's also a little bit of a war story. It's also a little bit of conspiracy. It's got lots of nature in it. It does take place in Tennessee. So I'm considering this some research for my book too. And, The book's going to be part of that rejection journey. It's going to be really vulnerable to put myself out there. I'm 100 pages in. I got a little bit of research to do before I start diving back into my other pages, but it was one of those things where I was driving and it was kind of like just this download of information. I'm like, that is a story and that is something I need to write down. And I've put a lot of hard work and soul into that book. So it's going to be like needing this rejection challenge to put myself out there. And yeah, let's dive into my recap for week 8 of the Wildly Rejection Challenge, aka Becoming the Bison. If you have made it this far and you're new here, the idea behind the rejection challenge is simple. Instead of running away from rejection, I'm heading into it like a bison heading into the storm, because the quickest way to get over something scary is through it. Now, the goal is 1,000 rejections, because somewhere inside of all those no's are going to be some yeses. And this week, it felt a little bit stagnant, even though there was actually some movement happening. But, sometimes progress doesn't always feel exciting. Sometimes it looks like emails and waiting on responses, weird rejections, unfinished opportunities, or simply trying to keep momentum while life is happening around you. So this week I was accepted as a Fluke apparel ambassador and a Deutsch food ambassador, DOICH. And admittedly, these are a little bit of low-hanging fruit because these companies were openly looking for ambassadors on social media. They fit my brand and are good quality products, and I figured, why not shoot my shot? And I kind of feel like some of these ambassador programs are partially designed to get creators to jump through some hoops to get a discount and then buy their product. It kind of feels like extra steps for a coupon, maybe, is what I'm trying to say. And, it's okay if it's a company you genuinely like and are going to use. So if you want 10% off some outdoor clothing with a really cool logo, it's got a flounder on it, you can use Lauren Connolly. It's all caps, all one word. Then Lauren, LAUREN CONNOLLY at flukeapparel.co.com. And then the Deutsch food is still making me wait for their ambassador dashboard and code. Their email said, once you've placed your first order, you'll gain access to the ambassador dashboard where you can create your code to share with your friends and followers. Still waiting. I've checked email, I've checked spam, and I'm not sure how I, quote unquote, get access to my ambassador dashboard. But that actually leads me to another important lesson from this challenge. Check your spam folder at least once a week. When you're reaching out to dozens and dozens of people, opportunities, companies, podcasts, publications, grants, contests, important emails will end up buried in there, and sometimes in that promotions section in your Gmail if you have a Gmail account. So speaking of emails, I received one of the more surprising rejections of this challenge so far. I reached out to a nature podcast that I genuinely admired because their mission deeply resonated with me. Their show centers around the idea that humans are not separate from nature, but a part of it, that we are nature. And that very heavily overlaps with my own work. And here's what I sent them. That I recently came across your podcast and really connected with the idea that nature isn't somewhere we go, but something that we're a part of. That philosophy deeply resonates with both my work and my personal journey. I'm currently doing a creative rejection challenge where I'm encouraging myself to reach out to people and projects I genuinely admire. And instead of overthinking it, I'm asking you, blah. And there was a little bit more that I shared. I sent some ideas about nature journaling, conservation storytelling, creatively reconnecting people to the natural world, burnout, mindfulness, and learning to slow down enough to notice life again. And after all that, the response that was in my spam box was, after reviewing your podcast and website, I've decided our podcasts don't truly align. That one took me back. Like, what? And if anything, I thought our shows were too similar. And that rejection genuinely confused me. I've had plenty of guests on my show whose work overlaps with mine, and I see it as a good thing. If someone cares about helping people connect with nature, creativity, conservation, healing, or slowing down, I am excited to talk to them. And to me, the collaboration expands the message. We can swap guests, share audiences, exchange ideas, and you help amplify something bigger than ourselves. And at the end of the day, the important part is that more people hear the message that nature matters, creativity matters, and people are desperately needing to reconnect with nature. So yeah, that rejection, that one hit me a little bit hard because it brought up this strange feeling of, why don't I belong in my own community? And I think that's something worth talking about, because rejection is rarely about the thing itself. Sometimes rejection pokes holes at old insecurities. It makes you question whether you're enough, and it makes you feel like you're an outsider in spaces where you thought you fit in. So I have to remind myself that one person saying not aligned does not define my work. And I also want to try, and if somebody reaches out to me and wants to be on my show, I've rarely turned anybody down. I think maybe it was like a scheduling conflict, or we keep reaching back and forth trying to make something work and it falls through. I've had people come on the show that have nothing to do with nature, and I'm like, hey, we can talk about your business, but I have a couple questions about nature. I think everybody has a nature story. As long as we talk about that, you can absolutely be on my show. Because it's also about creativity too. As humans, I feel like we are born to create. Even if you're just creating a peanut butter sandwich today, you are creating something. So yeah, I don't want anybody to feel basically the way that I'm feeling, even if I can make 20 minutes for somebody to record a show. It's going to be a mission of mine to make them feel welcome. So another rejection this week was for a psychological fiction short story that I created. And I won't spoil too much about it because it's going to be part of an anthology someday. It all excuse me, I'm sorry. It's going to be part of an anthology, and they all tie into one common theme, and I don't want to spoil the theme because I haven't seen it out there before, and I think it's something pretty unique. So you have to hang tight and wait for that one, because eventually it will come out. But it was one of those stories that I had created, and I thought, this is really creative and different and good. And it still got rejected. But I noticed this time was different. Instead of spiraling into the rejection for hours or days, I almost immediately started looking for other places to submit it. And honestly, that might be one of the biggest lessons of this entire challenge, is this work is, the answer isn't, oh, I got rejected, my work is bad. Maybe it's just, this isn't the right place for it. And that shift in the mindset felt huge. On a much brighter note, the Blue Koi Gallery online exhibit launched this week, and I'm incredibly excited to see my painting, Loggerhead Lagoon, displayed alongside so many other talented artists. It was one of those moments where I paused and thought, okay, this challenge is actually doing something. And I also realized something kind of funny. I originally said I was going to do 10 rejections a week, and I'm already over 100 submissions in attempts total. So technically I should be at 80, and I'm ahead. So this week I only submitted 7, and I'm okay with that. My baby, like I said, graduated from high school this week. My husband was in town, and we're preparing for our huge life transition and moving to Key West. So life is happening, and it's another important lesson that consistency doesn't have to mean self-destruction and burnout. Some weeks will be heavier, some weeks will be slower, some weeks require rest. Burnout is real, and I am aiming to prevent that from happening ever again. And, you know, a lot of what I do here at Wildly Unplug is to encourage people to slow down and reconnect with life and try to avoid that hustle that, you know, people say we have to do. I'm getting distracted because there's somebody looking at turkeys. But this whole society teaches us that we have to hustle. And I want to rebel against that. And I need to remember to take my own advice sometimes. So I definitely did not submit as hard as I do other weeks. On a very, very heavy note, I found out recently that somebody that I interviewed for the podcast had passed away very suddenly and unexpectedly. And she was a friend of a friend, and she was just such a bright light. I felt like we had so much in common. And she was so passionate for creating and spoke openly about art and her life changes and retiring and faith and following a creative passion. And what struck me most was how deeply she loved creating. She described it the same way that I describe watercolor. It's the last thing you think about when you fall asleep and the first thing that you think about when you wake up. And her podcast is going to come out June 10th. All the pieces of my art. And she's caring for her son. She was caring for her dad. Someone that was just so full of life. You just never know. And I only knew her for about an hour, and it's still like, it's really, really affecting me. So my heart goes out to her family and everybody affected by her loss. But she inspired me to finally publish my book. I've been sitting on it for weeks, tweaking, waiting, overthinking. I kept putting it aside instead of just diving in and embracing the moment right now. I have a tattoo of a lightning bolt on my wrist because my husband and I have been struck by lightning before, and it was quite a shock, literally, and also figuratively. Like, life, a butterfly just went past my window. Life is not guaranteed. Something can happen in the blink of an eye, and you need to charge through your life like a bison going through a storm and go after what you want. So I went ahead and published it. So Art of Developing Life Lessons from Watercolor is out on Amazon. Has it sold any copies yet? No. But it exists, and that is what matters the most. And that I put myself out there. And maybe that's enough for now. So, thank you for listening to this really long update of week 8, Wildly Rejected, Becoming the Bison, the current total stats so far. Total submissions and attempts 105, accepted 26, rejected 23, in review 56. Biggest lessons for this week: not every rejection means you're unqualified. Sometimes it simply means wrong timing, wrong fit, different vision, different priorities. Maybe that door was never meant to be yours to begin with, and it's pushing you towards the door that is meant for you. And the important thing is, I am still showing up, and that is the real win. There is no normal intro and outro music for today, because I'm going to be uploading this later when I get to some service. It's going directly from my voice memo right to my platform to upload. No video this week either. I'm sorry about that. But it is out there, it's done. It's not perfect, and that is okay, because doing it is better than making it perfect. So yeah, I'm not even going to attempt to sing. I'll save you from that. But as far as a disclaimer, if you attempt to do anything that you see or hear on this podcast, make sure you do your research before heading out to any adventures. And Wild Development Studio and Wildly Unplug is not responsible for any loss, damages that may occur if you venture from doing something that was inspired by this podcast. Hopefully that covers it all. Insert normal disclaimer here. Until next time, unplug, because I am going to continue sitting here looking at this group of wild turkeys chasing each other in this beautiful valley in Cades Cove. Get outside, see what develops. Stay wild.
For more great iRoar podcasts, visit iroarpod.com. That's IROARPOD.com.